From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ijoma Onyato.
Hello and welcome. President Buhari, worried over rising insecurity across the country, meets with the leadership of the National Assembly as the federal government seeks ways of addressing challenge. Restriction of commercial motorbikes and tricycles from major roads in Lagos continues to take its toll on commuters as operators protest government policy. Edo APC crisis worsens as the state government calls for the arrest of the party's national chairman for allegedly flouting ban on rallies. Mr. Adams Oshomole declines comment over the allegation. And China's stock market takes a hit from the coronavirus as the country's top leadership admits shortcomings and deficiencies in their response to the deadly outbreak. Plus, we'll have business, sports, news from Abuja, the FCT, and of course, we'll head off to our studios in London a bit later.
On Business News tonight, FMDQ CEO explains how the central bank manages transition from single treasury bills market to the new system introduced in late 2019.
On Sports News tonight, Novak Djokovic vows to hold on to his new world #1 ranking and end up as the man with the most Grand Slam singles titles.
And from Abuja, Chinese ambassador to Nigeria says no Nigerian in his country has contracted coronavirus as Lagos government raises Incident Command and Control Center on the disease.
Tonight, the crucial meeting between the leadership of the National Assembly and the President again lent credence to the fact that security is still a concern in the country, particularly at this time, and they say the President is indeed worried about the situation. Well, his worries are also a major concern for the Vice President, who hints on efforts to recruit more troops and officers into all the security agencies. That may sound like respite. But the restriction on commercial motorbikes and tricycle operators in Lagos is brewing a controversy in the commercial city, with the state government insisting its decision is for the safety and security of everyone. Well, now that security is getting the needed attention, we kick off tonight with the meeting between the President and the National Assembly leaders. Our correspondent Ibrahim Adra reports that there is no definite agreement on whether or not the service chiefs will be relieved of their duties.
The new year saw an escalation in violent crimes across the country. The recent kidnap and killings in Kaduna, Plateau and Adamawa states are eloquent testimonies.
They had the key to security. And
the sad events are followed by condemnation and outcry. The House of Representatives called for the removal of service chiefs, while citizens took to the streets. The leadership of the National Assembly followed up their outcry with a visit to President Muhammadu Buhari. For close to an hour, they discussed the matter behind closed doors.
We have come to discuss with Mr. President the way forward, what we feel about some of these security challenges, and also to ask him what he thinks we should do. Even though in the Senate we still have our committee, ad hoc committee, to work and come up, fashion out specific measures that we believe should be taken.
Mr. Lawan captures the president's mood at the meeting.
The president was forthcoming. Of course, as the leader of this country, is more worried than anybody else.
While the meeting agreed on working with all stakeholders and citizens, no such agreement on whether or not it's time for the service chiefs to go.
There's also the school of thought that says, okay, well, all over the world. I mean, we're talking about banditry, we're talking about kidnapping, we're talking about murder. Now, some people have argued that what does the armed forces got to do with that? Anywhere in the world. What does the Navy got to do with that? Anywhere in the world. What has the Air Force got to do with kidnapping anywhere in the world? So the question then arises that if you change the service chiefs, does that address the issue of kidnapping and banditry? Because those are outfits that are set up for external aggression.
Another area of agreement is the need for more funding and recruitment, while the various committees of the National Assembly will work harder.
We did explain to Mr. President that we have to increase funding. We have to recruit more. Nigerians will begin to see traction and begin to see changes.
It's left to be seen what concrete action will follow this meeting in order to curb the menace of insecurity ravaging the country. From the presidential villa, Ibrahim Adra, Channels Television News.
And it appears one of the concrete actions being taken by the government is to recruit more troops and officers into all security agencies in the country to contain the threats. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, gave this hint today in a statement by his spokesperson, Mr. Laolu Akonde. He says President Muhammadu Buhari considers the task of securing the nation a priority, as the issue formed the crux of discussions at the National Security Council meeting held last Thursday. Professor Osinbajo adds that another important area the government will explore is the aspect of surveillance using drones as well as electronic devices to tackle the situation. He explains that the federal government is doing all it can to contain the situation. And let's stay with security for a bit now. The young man who was arrested with items suspected to be an improvised explosive device at a church in Kaduna State has been paraded by the police. The suspect, Nathaniel Samuel from Bauchi State, admitted to carrying a bag containing the IED into the church, but claims ignorant of the content of the bag. The state police authorities are now asking everyone not to politicize criminality, but join hands with security agencies and the government to tackle the challenge.
This suspect smuggled in to that church with his bag and placed the bag on the church chair. Thereafter, he went into a restroom and stayed there for over an hour. And this gave the apprehension by some of the church members that were observing their church service and drew the attention of the policemen providing security at the church, who later came in and then went straight to the restroom to bring him out. On inquiry, he confirmed to the policemen there and then that the items in the bag belonged to him. And on a closer look, they were suspected to be IEDs.
Now, the Lagos State Governor says it's also concerned about the safety of lives and security of its people, and that's why the restriction on tricycle and motorbike operators will stand. But that decision is not going down well with everyone. Our next report examines the level of compliance and how Lagos residents are coping with the restriction.
At Ojodu Burger, one of the entry points into the state, these riders who are used to resuming here every morning hover around without their tricycles, unsure of what is next.
They said we should all go home. Agreed. But what's the provision of the governor for people that are riding Keke Marua and even for the passengers?
Well, I'm a student. I dropped out as a result of financial challenges. So I just got to cycle 4 months ago just to make ends meet. So it's not really going well for me. And looking at people standing here, I don't think they are actually happy.
Operators are not the only ones stranded. Passengers rush every available vehicle at the bus stop. With full enforcement in place, compliance appears to have followed. Motorcycles and tricycles are off the major highways. In Ikeja, these motorcycle and tricycle operators appear to have a plan. Mobilize and reach appropriate authorities, they march peacefully, calling for a reversal. But at Ijara Olopa, a different approach is adopted as protesters burn tires to register their grievances. calm returns after a while, but eyewitnesses say protesters hurled stones at the police before security operatives contained the situation. Some commuters in the TBS, Igboshere and Obalende areas are left stranded at bus stops. Some have had to endure a wait of over an hour, while others resort to trekking.
When I stopped at TBS on my way to Eco Hotel roundabout, man, I had to spend close to like 1 hour there. No keke, and all the vehicles that were even coming refused going to Eco Hotel, so it became a serious issue. In fact, we'll be over like 500 people there, and I am very sure that some people are still there.
The Lagos state government says the discomfort commuters face now will last only for a while, but that does not seem to be sitting well with some people.
We know that Okada, all of us supported it. But Kekemarua, some of them that stubborn, we know. But when they want to do this, they don't supposed to bind it like that, because we are suffering. Like yesterday, I trekked from Ikeja on that bridge to grammar school. We were running helter-skelter with my children. I couldn't see bus. This morning again, I've been standing at BRT waiting for bus. I couldn't see.
The Lagos state government announced restriction of motorcycles and tricycles in 15 local councils of the state. Today, it appears the full weight of the law is now being felt on the first weekday of the month.
Let's put all this into perspective now. I'm being joined on the news at 10 by the Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Lagos State, Mr. Gbenga Omotosho. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you.
You've had a long day.
Sure.
Tough to look at some of the pictures coming out of Lagos, and then the protests there turning a little bit violent. Many people were even stranded. Did you envisage this kind of reaction when you came up with the restriction?
Of course, we envisioned that we will have some pains. And we kept on telling Lagosians that they should just not see the government as an entity without any meek of compassion, that they should credit the government with some sympathy for whatever pains that we may be experiencing now, and that at the end of the day, it's going to please all of us, because there will be the gain, that the gain is greater than the pains we are going to have now, because the pains will be short-lived.
But looking at the pictures that came out, people told us about pretty long distances they had to walk. I know the issue of palliatives has come up, and you talked about, we heard that there was a plan for buses. Where are these buses? What routes are they plying? A lot of people did not get to see them, if that is what you're putting in place instead. Talk to us more about that.
We are putting so many things in place to alleviate whatever suffering our people may be going through now. But today, there were buses in town. 65 of them rolled out in one day. And even the BRT buses that were bad were fixed, about 300 of them coming out. But what happened was that I was told in some areas, I'm still investigating the matter, but that some unionists, they didn't allow these buses to run. They didn't allow them to pick passengers. They were asking them to come and pay money. So it became a security matter to the police had to move in to dislodge these unionists. And then the government called their leadership and asked them to call their people to order, because they should not compound whatever complex situation that we have on our hands, if we can call it that.
So as you're talking to us tonight, could you tell Lagosians and anybody listening who needs to go out tomorrow, is there a specific route plan for where these buses will be? Because many people say when they come out, all they see is an empty street. You know, usually they would go through a tricycle or something, and they can't. So what is the plan for tomorrow?
Some major routes have been, buses have been deployed in some major routes, like CMS to Aja, 10 buses today, like Obalende to Aja, 10 buses too, like Inner Marina to Aja, 10 buses, from Baga to Ojota, 5 buses, from Ojota to Ikeja, 7 buses, and on like that. But the thing is that you cannot have this kind of policy and there won't be pains. What some people want, I sympathize with people who are to work today. It's not easy to walk 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers, especially if you have not been doing this before. But I would like to tell Lagosians that they should stay firm. They should continue to support the government, because the pains will not last long. Because tomorrow, as I speak with you, we are ready to commission 14 boats that will be plying so many routes. If you are going from Ikorodu to Marina, you don't need to go by road. I mean, it's shorter, it's safer, it's freer. As from tomorrow, we are going to commission 14 boats from Marina to Mile 2 and such places. And then more buses are coming up. We have over 500 of them at the ports that we are clearing. The logical question is that why don't you allow these things to come on board before you take this decision? But the people have to realize that this is a decision taken by the State Security Council. So it is much more than moving from one point to another. There are so many other reasons that government cannot fail its duty to move to this kind of action so that Lagosians will not blame us for not moving to stop some certain things that the government is seeing, looking at the big picture that Lagosians are not seeing. They should just trust the government that it has taken a nice decision to protect lives and property of Lagosians and visitors.
Thank you, Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Lagos State, Mr. Gbenga Omotosho. Thanks for coming on the news at 10 tonight. Thank you. And in part 2, after the break, electoral materials destroyed as unknown persons set INEC office in Olu, Imo State ablaze. Police begin manhunts for suspects. That's in a moment. Do join us again.